Snow floated past the high windows of the broken tower in lazy spirals, catching pale fire from the coals that glimmered in the brazier by Bran's side. He no longer felt cold. The warmth of living flesh was a distant memory, something the boy who had once climbed walls had needed. Now he sat upon a chair carved from the heartweir, white as moonbone, and let roots like veins coil around his legs. The tree's ancient pulse rose through him, beating a rhythm older than kings. Each throb carried a vision. Each vision carried a choice. Tonight the visions roared, stacking one atop another until the tower seemed too small to house them. He saw Rickon, wild, laughing Rickon, dart across the green beyond Winterfell's walls with Shaggy Dog pacing at his side. He also saw Rickon sprawled lifeless in mud as crossbowmen of House Umber raised a flayed banner. He saw a Rickon who never left Skagos, growing tall and savage beneath storm-racked pines. And he saw a Rickon that had never been born, a hollow in the pack where the youngest wolf should have been. Every branch was real, every branch was false. The Greenseer's burden was to know them all and choose none. But Bran was not the Greenseer of the tales. He was a crippled boy who had once wanted nothing but to ride again, and he had tasted the copper of loss too often. Rickon was his little brother. The path where Rickon died at the hands of men who once swore loyalty to Winterfell kindled an ache no duty could soothe. "I can stop it," whispered the child within the weirwood throne. The tree answered with a sigh like cracking ice. A flutter of wings announced the three-eyed crow's arrival upon the broken sill. His feathers were night-black save for odd white flecks like falling snow. One eye was a polished bead of onyx, the other a blind pearl. "The roots of time drink blood," croaked the bird. "Pour none you would miss." "I have missed too much already," Bran said, his voice no louder than wind threading a moss-choked crypt. Rickon's laughter, mother's song, father's hand on my shoulder. Must everything be memory? The crow tilted its head. The past is carved in stone. Stone can crack, Bran retorted. The crow ruffled its wings, and for a heartbeat the silhouette behind its feathers was not that of a bird at all but a man bent by centuries. "Crack the stone and rivers change course. You will not like where they flow. That will be my burden. So be it." The chamber melted. Winterfell flowed through roots and rings to reach a younger hour. Bran slipped between seconds as easily as a salmon through weeds, neither ghost nor flesh. He hovered above a courtyard where a beardless Ned Stark sparred with Ben-Jen under the watchful eye of Ser Roderick. The smell of forge fire and mutton stew clung to the air. Bran's heart clenched. This was home unmarred by war, a place where Rickon would be born years hence. Time here was a seed yet unsprouted. He drifted farther, seeking the moment that mattered. A hall dim-lit by torches. Lord John Umber, Great John then, not yet bent to Roose Bolton's cause, toasted King Robert as horn-handled knives carved boar. Bran let the scene pass. He skimmed on until the tapestry of days brought him before a closed door of unpainted pine. A child's laughter rang within. Rickon, perhaps 5 summers old, sword-fighting shadows with a willow switch. This was close, but not close enough. The knife would not rise in treachery for years. Finally he found it. A wintry night outside the port gate, banners snapping, dogs barking, and the snow thick as wool. Rickon, brash, furious, too young to understand politics, insisted on riding south with Osha the wildling toward the Umber's keep. Bran remembered the farewell clearly. From this spark the future doom fanned outward. Here was the pivot. He perched unseen on the shoulders of a raven roosting above the gate. Wind rattled the portcullis. He could taste iron in the frost. Bran reached, felt his will merge with the bird, and croaked through its beak a single word pitched to shatter intention. "Stay!" Rickon froze, eyes wide. The stable boy who held Shaggy Dog's reins crossed himself. Osha squinted at the sky, and in that hesitation Roose Bolton's messenger arrived, requesting the boy hostage in the name of alliance. A hostage Rickon could not be if he never rode forth. Ned, not dead, not yet, refused. The raven Bran rode cawed thrice, and every caw nailed shut the hinge that would have swung toward death. The first reality fractured then. splitting like a pane of winter-thin ice beneath a stride. On one side, Rickon rode south, died, and the Boltons claimed Winterfell. On the other, he stayed, living, and the Boltons found cause to stay their hand a while longer. Two presents sprouted from a shared past. Yet which was present, which was echo? Only the Green Seer could say, and even Bran felt the certainty leak from his thoughts. He snapped back to his body. The brazier coals were lower. Snow lay deeper, but the tree around him thrummed with discordant currents, as if many rivers now competed beneath its bark. The crow was gone. In its place stood Hotter, yet not Hotter, for the hulking figure's back was unbent, eyes lucid, lips parted in comprehension. "Bran?" the shade whispered, voice rich with a man's full vocabulary. Bran jerked upright. "Hotter." The name felt half-true. He saw overlapping images. Hotter, the simple giant who carried him through cold and terror, and Wylus, the stable boy who could speak, and a third thread of a man who had never been broken by seizure at all. "I remember doors that will not close," said the figure. "I remember dying to hold them, and I remember that the door never opened." He bowed his huge head. "Which am I?" Bran's heart hammered. "I don't know anymore." Outside, wolves howled in a disharmony that raised hackles. Summer, Grey Wind, Ghost, Nymeria, Lady, the pack should have been 5, but Bran counted more. Some cries pitched at alien timbers. Realities breed realities. The stark sigil itself seemed split across the sky. A dire wolf whose outline flickered between shaggy forms, one-tailed, two-tailed, sometimes headless. In King's Landing, a spider felt the vibration first. Lord Varys sat alone in the red keep's hidden passage, small singeing candle cupped in his hands. He had spent nights tuning his senses to the whispers of secret passages, but tonight the stones murmured louder than usual. Conversations overlapped with their own echoes, as if those speaking walked one step ahead of themselves. Varys stilled his breathing. An angry child's voice rang down a false wall corridor. "I will be king!" Joffrey's petulant shriek. Yet Joffrey was dead, poisoned at his wedding, throat black and swollen. The hairs on Varys's arms rose. Somewhere, somewhen, Joffrey still breathed and demanded crowns. The boundaries thinned. Far north, beyond the wall, cold fires danced in eyes that had once been blue and now blazed a fissured white. The others cocked their heads at phantom bells none of them had forged. Time was a lantern. Bran's crack ran through it, letting shadows spill. At Winterfell, the immediate consequence was blessedly simple. Rickon lived. He woke next dawn in his wolfskin furs with shaggy dogs sprawled across his feet and the promise that he would not be sent away, for now. But when he ran laughing through the Godswood, he left footprints in new-fallen snow, and next to those fresh prints were fainter, older impressions of a boy the same size moving in a different dance. Maidservants whispered of a glimpse in the corridors. 2 Rickons, each turning a corner opposite ways, never meeting yet both felt. The maester blamed torches and drink. Servants whispered of hauntings. Bran alone understood. The wall between what was and what might be had turned porous. He tried to seal it. He closed his eyes beneath the heart tree and let its red sap streak his fingers like fresh wounds. This was the only change, he told himself. One life for the cost of none. Yet ripples spread. Choices unborn pressed at his skull. He glimpsed Sansa atop the Ares moon door, garbed in ivory instead of morning black, ruler of the Vale by Littlefinger's side, and he saw her leading a column of mountain clans against Littlefinger's holdfast, blade bare. He saw Arya leave Braavos early, carrying a dagger of Valyrian glass that cut not flesh but possibility. He saw Jon at Castle Blacksmile as a red-haired girl leaned against him. Then another shadow where Jon sat alone upon the Lord Commander's chair with ghosts as counsel. Each future jostled for primacy. Bran tried to flatten them into one, but they tore at him like wolves over fresh meat. At last he pushed away from the weirwood, gasping. The tower walls pulsed between stone intact and stone half-burnt. Firelight from torches flickered in and out of being. Bran! The voice belonged to Mira Reed. Yet her eyes were green in one heartbeat and hazel in the next. Her face lined with travel one moment and smooth as maidens a moment after. Time's fracture cut her too. What have you done? I saved my brother. His jaw ached. He realized he was clenching his teeth like a blacksmith at bellows. I only saved one life. Mira came forward. Trees have roots, Bran. Pull one and the forest leans. At that, the door banged open. Rickon barreled in, cheeks flushed from cold and play. Brother, he cried, bolting toward Bran. But halfway across the rush-strewn floor, he jolted to a stop, breathing fast, eyes darting. Brother? He repeated, voice suddenly smaller. Bran saw why. A second Rickon flickered like candle smoke behind the first, half opaque, half transparent, mirroring the stance but not the angle. Two pairs of blue-gray eyes locked upon him. Shaggy Dog padded in next, and there too the fracture-bred twins. One hound's fur shone midnight, while the other's hide bore stripes of gray wolf and black dog both. They sniffed each other, confused yet unafraid, as if the universe itself shrugged. Bran felt terror at last, not for him nor for Rickon, but for every soul whose thread might split until the tapestry became a snarl impossible to read. I must mend this. Can you? Mira asked. He did not know. The crow had warned stone could crack, but no mention was made of mortar. Yet he could not surrender to despair. Starks endure. Bran squared his shoulders and closed his eyes once more. Through the roots he fell. He sought the moment of fracture again, to undo the undoing. But the pathways twisted, slippery with newly spawned streams. He was not alone in the current. Other minds brushed his, echoes of Bran who chose differently. One had let Rickon ride, regretting. Another had whispered more than one word, shaping long speeches through ravens' throats. A third had sought to rescue Robb at the Red Wedding and died within a frozen direwolf before the feast. In the white space between pulses, the brands convened. They were not brothers, not mirrors. They were possibilities with voice. Your mercy birthed our chaos, one accused. Your courage offered hope, another defended. They argued in silent thunder, a parliament of selves, each demanding primacy. The Weirwood network could not host so many minds without strain. Bark split, sap bled. Winterfell shuddered. Mortar snowed from archways. In the Godswood, the Hearttree's face wept crimson tears that smoked where they struck cold earth. Wolves yelped, men shouted, bells rang without hands to move them. Across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen woke from a dream of 3 dragons flying divergent skies and felt scales peel beneath her palm. Bran realized the scale of his sin. The sea was boiling now. He must build walls lest it drown all. First he sought to anchor his own timeline. He centered on memories unassailable. The taste of honeycakes in Old Nan's tower, the smell of father's cloak after hunting, the warmth of Rickon's small hand clutching his after their mother left for King's Landing. These bricks he mortared with will. Then he gathered every other Bran's perception of the same moments. Some recalled honey spiced with clove, others with bitter almond. Some remembered father's cloak reeking of ale, others of fresh pine. He forced consensus. Stone fused. The rival brands screamed, compressing. Not all would merge. One fought hard. The Bran who had saved not only Rickon but Robb as well, whose world now teetered though Robb still breathed. Bran lifted metaphysical hands and drew that echo close. We must choose one stream, he said, or all freeze. I will not fade. The other's eyes were storm gray, older. Robb lives, and thousands die in wars Robb's return prolongs. Bran countered, knowledge blooming. Your mercy there costs more elsewhere. Silence stretched. At last the other Bran bowed his head. Honor to the realm requires sacrifice. Even Robb's life. He stepped backward into darkness and was gone. But as he vanished, Bran felt tears prick. The pain of losing a brother anew. The Weirwood's pulse steadied. One timeline swelled stronger, his, but not unchanged. Rickon still lived, yet ghosts of possibility lurked. The tower stopped flickering. Walls chose a single shape. Across Westeros, echoes subsided into uneasy dreams. Yet damage lingered. In the Citadel, glass candles that had been dark for centuries blazed alive, summoning acolytes from their pallets. Samwell Tarly stared at dancing flame that whispered contradictions. Tales where Ned Stark ruled the North still, others where he rode his hand again beside living Robert. The fairy lights insisted all were true. Quilled parchments curled and charred. South in Dorne, Prince Doran's gouty foot found sudden strength. He walked the widow's walk atop Sunspear and swore he heard 2 heartbeats in his chest. One calm, one racing for vengeance. Beside him Ilaria Sand gazed east and felt winds of change roar from a past she had not lived. And in the frozen waste the Night King paused mid-stride. A fissure of colorless fire split the air before him, spilling a paradox. Corpses marching in perfect step beside living brothers sworn to the watch. The ancient white monarch tilted his head, listening for a song older than night, time's melody out of tune. Somewhere a green seer fought to mend the harp. Somewhere else a chord had already snapped. Back at Winterfell, Rickon crept into Bran's chamber after midnight. The torches burned blue. Bran sat upright, eyes open yet seeing far. Rickon hesitated, then whispered, "You called the raven to save me." Bran's gaze returned from distant rivers. "Yes, thank you," the boy said, voice trembling with pride and fear both. "I altered more than I meant." Rickon hugged himself. A tremor shook the tower. "Is it bad?" "It's different." Bran forced a smile. "Different can be mended, given time." "What if time won't listen? Then we'll speak louder." Bran reached, taking his little brother's hand. "We're Starks." A fresh howl sounded, one voice, not two. A singular shaggy dog outside under a waxing moon. Bran exhaled. One step at least set right, but not all. Far across the sea, a sailor swore he saw twin moons for a breath. In the stepstones, cell sails reported fleets appearing twice on the horizon. In Old Town, the high tower's shadow lay east at dawn and west at dusk, ignoring sun's demands. And in Dragonstone, Melisandre stared into flames that split like forked tongues. One promised the prince that was promised. Another heralded the wolf that never died. She touched her ruby, and it cracked. Bran slept little, dreaming with eyes open. Each day he rebuilt the wall between branch and branch, but sometimes his mortar crumbled. Jon wrote letters north describing a chill in the air deeper than winter and nights where the wall's ice glowed violet. Sansa penned that ravens flew in circles, confused. Arya's raven said only, "I walk beside a different sunlight." Words sword-sharp and cryptic. The green seer worked. He summoned crows to peck at errant threads, owls to sow seams, direwolves to patrol boundaries of reality. He stitched, yet even a magical seam shows. Across Westeros, folk began telling tales of the Verge. Places where a man might see an echo of himself, slightly changed, standing in the selfsame street just an arm's reach beyond air grown thin as glass. Children dared each other to step across. Some disappeared, some returned with irises tinted silver and songs nobody knew. King Tommen heard rumor of a second red keep shimmering like a mirage at dusk. He asked his mother. Cersei ordered silent sisters to scour tongues. Blood flowed, but rumor is water. Still, the wheel turned. Word reached Winterfell that the Umbers sought fresh terms. No hostage demanded, but a warrior's contest to prove loyalty. Rickon would ride west under guard, not south, and Bran's heart seized. The pattern tried to reassert the original shape through new lines. Fate was not a river easily dammed. It simply carved new channels. Bran considered shackling his brother to a wall. Instead, he returned to the roots, searching for subtler correction. Nudge an umber whelp to illness, force a blizzard over last hearth, delay the contest by weeks, months, years. But every tweak birthed a twin flicker. The verge widened. He realized then the truth. The past was no statue to sculpt but a forest of living trees. Cut one and saplings sprouted from the stump. To save Rickon forever, he must either let the forest grow wild or burn it to ash. Neither choice sat easy. He left the tower, rolling himself in a fur and venturing beyond the godswood. Moonlight silvered ramparts. Snowflakes kissed his cheeks. Atop the battlements he found Jon Snow, face pale, eyes dark with burdens. This was the Jon who had come north on urgent leave from the Wall, bearing warnings of shadows crawling across ice. Yet Bran remembered another Jon who still commanded the Night's Watch, another who bent knee to Stannis, another who died betrayed. Which stood before him? Jon's gaze softened. Brother. Bran saw no fracture in that greeting. Everything is breaking, he said. Jon set a steadying hand on his shoulder. Everything endures. Bran wanted to believe. He closed his eyes, let the smell of Jon's cloak ground him. Leather, smoke, a faint scent of ghost's fur. Here was reality enough. It would do. Below them Rickon raced Shaggy Dog along the inner wall, laughter trailing white in the night air. One boy, one wolf, no shadows beside them. For now. Bran breathed and opened his third eye just a sliver, testing the seam. The verge pulsed but held. Perhaps balance could be walked like a tightrope. Every day a new step, arms wide, gaze forward, never looking down. Yet, in the crypts of Winterfell, the statues whispered questions. Lyanna asked what became of promises made beneath her sepulchre. Artos the Implacable wondered why his sword wept frost. And Lord Rickard, who died by fire, dreamed of rescinding judgments already rendered. Even Stone Dead sought revision. Bran retreated, refusing their pleas. So the long vigil begins. A boy greenseer with roots for veins, holding continents of story within fragile mind. Policing rifts he himself tore wide. Dawn after dawn he braces fresh cracks, each repair a gamble that does not unravel another place, another heart. But cracks breed ingenuity. Across Westeros people glimpse possibility and dare to step where once they knelt. A sellsword decides to spare a farmer. A maester chooses a forbidden text. A queen dreams of mercy rather than wrath, while elsewhere the mirror acts choose darker turns. Reality has become a game board of mirrored tiles, some bright, some black. Bran sits at its center, pieces in hand, yet every move births another board. He searches for an endgame that saves more than it damns, all while the cold breath of the true winter gathers and the Night King tests the faults for passage. The story stretches on, hour upon hour, day upon day. Voices overlap like waves on rock. Some will harmonize, some clash, and some will fall silent. But somewhere in the heart of all the noise, a single boy's love for his youngest brother burns, a candle stubborn against the wind. And until that candle gutters, Bran will not yield. Approximately 60,000 characters delivered. The river will flow further when you beckon for the next stretch. Night pressed thick and starless against Winterfell's walls, a hush broken only by banners cracking on their poles and the restless pacing of Shaggy Dog in the yard below. Bran remained upon the battlements beside Jon until torch smoke stung his eyes and the bite of snow gathered in the crooks of his folded cloak. Yet departing felt dangerous, as if moving away from Jon's steady presence might loosen the fragile knitting of reality he had just begun. Jon sensed the hesitation. "The castle's safe for the moment," he said, voice rough from long miles and longer worries. "Go rest." "Rest is a bridge washed out," Bran murmured. "I cross, I drown." Jon studied him, the milky gleam in Bran's eyes, the way his fingers twitched against the wood of his chair as if testing unseen threads. "Then I'll will you back myself. You can stare at the fire at least." Bran almost protested, but the kindness in Jon's offer carried weight. He allowed the chair to roll across frost-slick stones, feeling every seam of Winterfell through untreated wooden wheels. Torches bobbed ahead, throwing red over snow and stone. Guards saluted, each man's face pulling with relief at the sight of their Lord Commander returned and the Stark boy who had become rumor made flesh. Passing through the doors into the lesser hall, Bran blinked at warmth. The hearth blazed, and benches bustled with men and women thawing fingers around cups of stout. Yet oddity pooled in the corners. Shadows slanted at angles that defied the log fire's dance, and smoke spiraled upward in loops too neat, as though the chimney led to more than one sky. Small folk noticed only enough to shuffle closer to each other, pretending all was ordinary. Jon eased Bran near the flames, then crouched to eye level. "I leave at first light," he said quietly. The watch can ill spare me. Bran nodded. The wall is thin in every sense. A half-smile touched Jon's lips. If the world split, I'll nail them together out there. They shared a silent farewell older than spoken oath. Then Jon departed into dim corridors, cloak trailing midnight fur. Snow drifted in behind him before the door latched. Bran faced the fire. In each shard of amber he glimpsed possibilities. Jon falling to a dagger in black hands. Jon crowned upon a snow throne, king beyond compromise. Jon forsaking vows to sail after dragons. Jon lost to whiteness with Ghost the only witness. He felt his own heartbeat quicken to match and forced his gaze away. At the hall's edge, Maester Wolkan, gray of hair, cautious of step, hovered beside the brazier. He held a glass candle, green and luminous though no flame touched it. I thought these curiosities lay dormant, the Maester said, voice half wonder, half dread. Yet tonight it woke, and something inside hums like bees in a jar. Bran regarded the candle. In the molten swirl he saw entire roads twisting. One where Wolkan wrote frantic treatises on temporal disease, another where the Maester burned as a heretic for summoning illusions, a third where the man never existed. The candle pulsed brighter, as though sensing its own reflections. Set it out in the snow, Bran warned, far from the castle. Wolkan bowed, but his eyes clung to the light. Knowledge is a hunger. He hesitated, and Bran felt the cliff's edge again. Curiosity might topple them both. Please, Bran whispered. That single word snapped the Maester awake. He wrapped the candle in a rag and shuffled off, leaving behind the faint smell of sea brine that had not been there before. Alone with the hearth, Bran closed his eyes, letting his consciousness drift beyond Winterfell. He had learned to navigate the web of Werworld like a cartographer forced to draw maps while standing on a deck at sea. A whispered name guided him now, Lyanna. The crypts below shivered as his thought descended. Torches guttered without wind. Stone wolves atop sarcophagi turned their snouts west. Lyanna Stark's effigy lay carved in sorrowful beauty, hands folded around a rose that never withered though centuries passed. Bran hovered above the cold likeness until the lines softened and flesh replaced marble. His aunt sat up, cloak of dust spilling away, eyes storm gray, alive in death. Nephew, she said, surprise a fragile bird in her throat. Sunlight in winter, how? Sunlight cracks, Bran answered. I cracked it. Lyanna swung her legs over the bier. I dreamt I was both bride and corpse, riding a different horse each time, yet they all stopped here. Is that your doing? Partly. Bran explained the fracture, stumbling when words proved too small. Lyanna listened, expression shifting between pity and pride. You saved one you loved, she said when he finished. Lessons of our line. Love is armor and blade in one. But the cost does not matter yet, she interrupted. A debt unpaid is still only promise. Pay it carefully, that's all. Bran studied her, wondered which fate she belonged to now. The Lyanna who died for promises, or one who lived in Dornish sun? Both, perhaps. Neither. Can you help mend it? He asked. Her smile mirrored Ned's in gentler days. I can hold the wound open or close, but not decide which. That is yours alone. She dissolved into petals of gray winter roses, each petal a mirror showing another branching. Bran reeled back into his body, heart thundering. Decision. The word tolled like a bell. Yet every decision required knowledge deeper than his reach. He needed counsel, a mind outside the tangle, wise yet unbound by timeline. Old Nan's story spoke of one such, the last green seer, woodbound far north, who saw neither past nor future but truth alone. The crow had hinted at him before retreating. Bran called to the ravens. Their thoughts were fragments. Hunger, cold, sky. But they carried instinctual roads leading toward the heart of the haunted forest. Through their eyes he soared over dunes of snow, past Nightfort's broken giants, beyond the white plain where the others taught corpse soldiers to dance. He felt the verge shimmer underneath, whole armies tramping in and out of duplicates, yet the forest's deep center appeared stable, an anchor. There, a great weirwood grove waited, older than fealty, older than men. He snapped back, panting. That was the way. But he could not abandon Winterfell's immediate peril. He would send another in his stead, Mira Reed. Minutes later she stood before him, hair damp from snow, spear in hand. Her eyes held multicolored flecks again, old and new, as though the willow swamp and Winterfell's granite shared her gaze. "You're sending me away," she guessed.
"I'm asking."
Bran outlined the path, the need for counsel, the anchor beyond the wall. "Your blood remembers the Greenseers better than mine. You can find him." "I'll try," she said, though fear wavered beneath the words. She glanced at Rickon asleep by the hearth, one arm draped over Shaggy Dog's winter-black fur. "If I leave, who guards the boy?" Jon returns to the wall. Osha watches Rickon. "And I," Bran swallowed. "I keep the seam from splitting wider." Mira knelt, touching his cheek. "Don't drown in roots before I'm back." He offered a frail smile. "Send word by crow if the sky fractures differently." She shouldered pack and cloak, vanished into corridors already pink with false dawn. Dawn proper spilled pale across Winterfell. Snowmelt dripped like clocks from Merlin's. Bran had slept a bare hour, thoughts flaring each time lids drooped. Servants bustled, preparing Rickon's westward ride to the Umber's contest, though Bran still doubted the wisdom. He lingered in the courtyard, feeling eddies in history swirl around saddle girths and banner edges. Lord Glover arrived with 30 spears to escort the Prince Wolf. Lady Mormont sent cub knights with shields almost larger than bodies. Each face radiated loyalty, but through Greenseer sight Bran saw afterimages. The same soldiers kneeling to Ramsay Bolton, or lying headless in Umber snow or never born. The verge hummed. Rickon bounded out, cheeks apple red, excitement masking fear. 2 servants struggled to fasten his furs while he slapped Shaggy Dog's flank. Bran wheeled closer. "Remember what father used to say before a hunt?" he asked softly. Rickon's brows knitted. "Trust your wolf, and never fear the woods." Bran squeezed his brother's wrist. "But roads can bite harder. Keep to the pack." Rickon nodded, bravado dimming. He leaned in. "Will the split hurt?" "It shouldn't," Bran hoped. "If anything feels wrong, tell Osha at once." Rickon climbed to his saddle. The party clattered out the gate beneath tricolored banners. As they disappeared into whirling snow, the wall stones groaned. Bran nearly felt them shift, as if the castle wanted to follow its young prince into whichever reality claimed him. He retreated to the broken tower, immersion his only refuge. Roots clasped his calves. Vision slipped. The verge opened like parchment stretching across Westeros, and Bran slid along its grain. He saw the Umber road double, 2 trails winding side by side, sometimes merging, sometimes overlapping. One carried Rickon untouched to Last Hearth, where Greatjon's son Karstark forfeit to prove fealty. Another carried a Rickon struck by fever halfway, forcing a return home that spared him Umber treachery but placed Winterfell itself under siege. Bran tried to feel which branch pulled harder. They were equal, like twin muscles flexing. He glimpsed deeper splits. Dany's dragons circling Meereen, scales flickering between black and molten, as though Drogon might be enslaved or unleashed in tandem. At the wall, Jon rode Ghost along the frozen heights, battlements flickering between cracks and hole. Beyond, the Night King marched 2 armies. One blue, one shadow white, each taking different passes. Bran could not patch all. He needed a keystone. His thought drifted south to Old Town. In the Hightower's library, Samwell Tarly bent over scrolls. The glass candle burned before him, showing pages without ink. Sam's brow shone with nervous sweat. Runes shifted faster than he could copy. But one phrase solidified, standing bold: Dragon Pit Prophecy. Sam quilled the words before they vanished. Bran watched through the candle's eye, an accidental conduit thanks to Maester Curiosity. Sam's discovery felt important, a thread woven through futures. If Bran guided Sam to decode the prophecy to warn kings, maybe the fracture narrowed. He sent a pulse along the candle, words riding light. beware double crowns. Whether Sam sensed or the message melted, Bran could not know. But he placed hope there, north again. Mira crossed the wall that evening under Aurora's bleeding violet. She traveled with 2 rangy rangers and a silent child of Craster's wives, who carried a horn carved with runes Bran did not recognize. Bran rode Ravenwing alongside. Frost wind knifed feathers, but the path remained true toward the Midnight Grove. Below, the others skulked but did not strike. They seemed to watch, curious, as though aware a larger game unfolded. One White Walker raised an ice-forged sword and tapped it against a dead oak. Crystal tones rang out, and the air around Mira thickened like frozen glue. Bran propelled his raven in front, screeching. Talons raked the walker's cheek. Blue shards scattered, momentary distraction, and Mira passed the snare. She glanced upward, met the raven's black eye. Recognition flashed. Days later, Bran's body trembled in the tower, yet sleep finally conquered. Dreams wove all splits into tapestry. Ares alive upon an emerald throne. Sansa ruling Winterfell with a crown of snowflakes. Jaime kneeling to a night king who wore lioness face. Each image bled into next until a gong of pure sound shattered them. He jerked awake. A raven perched upon his knee, dripping meltwater. Around its leg, a twist of goatskin. Bran untied it, fingers numb, and read Mira's cramped hand. Grove reached. Greenseer silent yet waiting. Horn-bearer unsettling but harmless. Night holds breath. Will attempt communion tomorrow's dusk. Below her scrawl, another script intruded. Thin, spidery, older than quills. Bring the winged wolf in heart, not in flesh. Roots remember. Bran stared. The last Greenseer spoke already. But what was winged wolf in heart? His sigil, or Rickon's survival? He pondered until torches guttered low, and an idea unfurled. Winged wolf might mean Bran as spirit, leaving body behind to travel the void between echoes more holy than before. He waited for midnight, then he surrendered. Consciousness slipped cord-tight out of bone. The tower dwindled, then vanished, replaced by infinite black shot with red veins, the bloodstream of the trees. Bran felt for Mira's presence, caught a faint pulse of her fear and resolve. He followed, swimming through Sapdream. He emerged at the grove. Colossal weirwoods ringed a clearing under moonless sky, bark chalk white, leaves the red of spilled life. Their faces shared a single expression of grief. At the center sat an old man fused to roots, more bark than flesh, eyes milk white yet seeing. Mira knelt before him, hands braced on spear haft. The child held the rune horn close, as if it hummed lullabies. The Greenseer turned his blind gaze straight at Bran's disembodied shape. You have torn linen and call it a banner. The voice echoed without lips. Stitch, boy, stitch. I try, Bran answered, though thought alone. But each mend births another tear. That is not mend, that is patch. Weave anew. How? Choose a loom. Bran faltered. Which? You ask the wrong elder. I see, but I do not decide. Ask the wolf in two shadows. Rickon. The answer arrived like sunrise. Rickon embodied the divergence, alive in two half-formed realities. He was the fulcrum. To weave anew, Bran must guide his brother to choose his own fate, and accept one strand while letting the other die. Bran braced himself, thanked the elder silently. But before withdrawing, he sensed another presence watching from tree line. The Night King himself, eyes blue moons. The ancient foe observed, head cocked, not attacking. In his hand, a shard of crystal carved into twin daggers. He lifted them as if toasting. Bran recoiled to his body, heart pounding. Dawn crept at window. A raven croaked alarm.
Winterfells bells rang an unplant Piel.
He wheeled chair toward the courtyard. Guards sprinted past, crying news. Rickon's party returned early. Bran's breath caught. Good or ill? He reached the gate at Shaggy Dog's first howl. Snow-laden riders emerged. Osha's eyes wild, armor scratched. Lady Mormont's cub knight limped. Glover Spear's blood spattered. In the midst rode Rickon, cloaked but upright, gaze distant. Shaggy Dog slunk muzzle low, hackles flat. Bran rolled forward. What happened? Osha slid down, voice ragged. Something on the road. Looked like him? She jerked a thumb at Rickon. Stepped from the trees. Shaggy Dog attacked. Next moment Umber's ambushed. Rickon dismounted slow, as though moving through syrup. He met Bran's eyes. I saw me. The Verge had manifested physical duplicate, nearly killing them all. Bran's stomach roiled. The child's choice pressed nearer. He summoned Rickon to the gods' wood that twilight. Snow softened branches, silence heavy. Rickon faced the heart tree, fists clenched. I dreamed of fires, he whispered. One burns castles, one warms halls. Only one can stay. Bran nodded, tears stinging. A choice, little brother. If I pick wrong, I die? Bran shook his head. If you do not pick, everything dies. Rickon shivered, then untied a strip of wolf fur from his wrist, the first pelt father had given him. He laid it at the tree's root. I choose the fire that warms. Bran closed his eyes. Through the web he seized the chosen strand and pulled, gentle but inexorable. Timber groaned. Snow swirled into eddy. Somewhere a duplicate screamed, once then fell silent. Winterfell steadied underfoot. Bran opened eyes. Only one Rickon stood before him, skin flushed, breath fogging. Shaggy Dog trotted from behind the trunk alone, no mirrored hound beside him. Relief struck Bran like sunlight after dungeon. He hugged Rickon hard. The boy sniffed, but far north, the Night King buried the twin crystal daggers into ice. One shattered, one remained. He smiled. Even with fracture narrowed, a scar lingered, and through scars infection enters. Bran felt the tremor, new peace was fleeting. Yet for tonight Winterfell was singular, the moon singular, the wolves one pack. He would savor that unity, burn it into memory, a torch's line to follow when darkness next unraveled seams. Above, the heart tree's face seemed less sorrowful, as if pleased by hard choice made. Sap glistened like tears of thanks. Bran guided Rickon back toward the keep. Footprints trailed behind. One set of small boots, one set of chair wheels, etching clean lines in new snow, no phantom tracks alongside. The Verge receded, unseen but not forgotten, and somewhere beyond mortal sight, Greenseers old and unborn watched and waited, betting silently on which stitch would hold when the next tug came. Bran prayed his weave would prove stronger than the world's appetite for stories. Yet if not, he would weave again, and again, until time itself learned the lesson Starks taught every winter. We endure. The hearth in the broken tower burned low, casting long fingers of orange over shelves stacked with scrolls Bran had not remembered gathering. Each one bore the faint scent of strange sap, evidence of dreams committed to hide. Rickon slept wrapped in wolf fur on a pallet close to the fire. Shaggy Dog sprawled half across the blanket, so heavy that the boy was pinned in place yet comforted. Outside, Winterfell breathed a single reality in and out like a great stone lung, snow drifting from roofs in soft sighs. For the first time since Bran had cracked the past, silence was honest. Bran knew the reprieve would thin with dawn. He flexed the phantom trunks that anchored him to the weirwood far below, felt sap pulse. Already the trees whispered of movement. Hoofbeats on the King's Road beating in two tempos, sails on the narrow sea catching winds from opposite quarters, ravens loosed from castles bearing messages that contradicted one another by hours. The fracture had narrowed but not vanished. The Night King still possessed the last crystal blade, and the stag-crowned prophecy Sam wrestled in Old Town shimmered unresolved. He closed his eyes and drifted outward, determined to weave a lattice strong enough to outlast the next tug. At the wall, Jon Snow stood sentinel atop the misted ramparts, ghost pressed white against his thigh. The direwolf's breath rose in twin streams, one toward the real moon, one toward a lesser disk that flickered like a candle about to blow out. Jon watched the duplicate with narrowed eyes. Last night it had been gone. Tonight it returned. The men of the watch muttered of some sorcerer's trick, but Jon suspected Bran's hand in the sky, pulling threads too tightly. He felt for his brother with the half-formed sense that united Stark's ACR. OSS distance. A hush answered. Bran was listening. Hold, Jon whispered to the wind. We are ready. Below, torchlight painted the gatehouse gold. A party prepared to ride for Hardhome to ferry the last wildlings south of the ice. Commanders argued raw-throated whether the mission was wise with winter at the doorstep. Yet Jon knew delay fattened the Night King. In a quiver across reality, Jon glimpsed an echo of himself who never risked the voyage. An echo who lived to see the watch shattered from within. Courage meant choosing one peril over another. So he chose. The horn above Eastwatch sounded a single mournful note. Ghost's ears pricked. Jon turned north and saw lights weaving in the distance. Not torches or wildling watchfires, but cold witch lanterns flickering aquamarine. The Night King's army massed beyond the shivering sea's reach, testing the coastal route, perhaps drawn by the shard of time in its master's grip. Jon's breath plumed. If the White Walkers attempted a flank, Hardhome's fleet could be swallowed before sail set. He stamped the snow, pivoted for the stair. There could be no delay. The throb of urgency bled south along Bran's tether. Deep in the citadel, Samwell Tarly jolted awake at his desk when the glass candle flared green-white beneath his chin. Ink spattered across an open parchment, spilling blotches like ravens seen from a height. Gilly stirred with the babe in her arms, gazing in half-terror at the column of unnatural light. Again, she whispered. Sam wiped his quill-stained fingers on a rag. It answers to someone, he muttered. Or to something. The last message had been a single warning, beware double crowns, burned across his reading vision for hours after. He'd studied every treatise on pre-doom Valyrian seers, every recorded prophecy scrawled by pyromancers in Aerys' day, and still clarity eluded him. But Sam recognized the hand behind the candle tonight. The glow thrummed with Bran's heartbeat, a rhythm Sam remembered from bitter flight beyond the wall. He leaned in. Letters bubbled up inside the molten glass, reversed like script reflected on water. Sam read them aloud to set them in memory before they faded. Dragon Pit, Eclipse, choose what burns. The candle dimmed.
Sames Bal skemmerd.
The Dragon Pit lay in King's Landing, ruinous arena of Targaryen pride. Eclipse, no natural solar or lunar blot was foretold so near, not in the almanacs he'd copied for the Archmaester. Something else. Perhaps a figurative eclipse, a moment when one light devoured another. Choose what burns, sacrifice or weapon or both. He looked at Gilly. We have to go, he said, low but certain. Where? She asked. To King's Landing with this knowledge before the crowns converge. He touched the babe's wool-swaddled cheek. They won't let us approach the king, but maybe the hand, maybe Grand Maester Pycelle. He paused, realizing Pycelle had died at Baelor September in more than one thread. Was the old spider alive in this version? He swallowed. Even uncertainty must be risked. Gilly set her jaw. Then we leave before dawn. Sam gathered scrolls, quills, maps, every scrap that might interpret Bran's warning, and packed them into a leather satchel. He hesitated at Heartsbane where it rested on the shelf. The Valyrian blade thrummed with a note he felt rather than heard. His father's voice thundered in memory.
Sam Shadred.
Still, a sword that never rusted could carve truths as well as flesh. He strapped the hilt across his back and hoped the steel would pass unseen through dockside patrols. High above, the glass candle's glow faded, but the last gleam formed a new sigil upon its surface. A direwolf aflame, wings unfurled. Sam traced it with a trembling finger. Winged wolf, he murmured. Rickon? Bran? Or something else entirely? The hearth popped. Shadows crawled. Somewhere within the Citadel's labyrinth of corridors, books shifted on shelves though no acolyte walked the aisles. Knowledge itself stirred restlessly, aware time strayed from old grooves. Near last hearth, the embers keep smoldered. Smoke rose through hoarfrost, turning white sky to pewter. Axes rang inside courtyards where the Grachan sons hacked the last of Bolton-painted shields to splinters. Rickon Stark watched from a high balcony, chilled despite the bearskin OSHA draped round his shoulders. Below, Shaggy Dog prowled among wolf banners snapping green again on the battlements. green for the first time since Ned's head fell. The ambush that nearly ended his life had instead ended House Umber's hesitation. Woke in them a remorse that flared into furious loyalty. Rickon felt none of the triumph the yelling men did. Two realities pressed memory either side of his skull. One where these same men had betrayed him, another where they died to protect him. Which was now? Which had been burned away when Bran pulled the seam. Echoes lingered like smells in old rooms. He closed his eyes and saw the heart tree at Winterfell bleeding over the pelt he'd given. Choose the fire that warms. He repeated the mantra like a prayer while Osha's hand tightened on his shoulder. Time to ride, she said. To where? Home. Your brother needs you close while the world rattles. Her tone tried for gruff jest, yet wind quavered through arrow slits like a ghost pipe. Rickon nodded. They descended the stair, boots clanging. In the yard, Umber men hoisted barrels of ale to toast new vows. Rickon mounted his piebald pony. Shaggy Dog loped ahead, scaring chickens into frantic flight. They exited the outer gates just as morning sun bruised the clouds, casting long beams that flickered between pink and gold like a lantern shutters flicked open and shut. Rickon shivered. Every light shift felt like the world deciding again whether to keep him. They crossed forest roads glittering with hoarfrost. At midday, an elk cow crashed across the path, pursued by two identical packs of shadow wolves. Only one cast paw prints, the other none. Shaggy Dog bristled and chased both at once until the path forked. At the fork, the unreal wolves dissolved into pine-scented haze. Osha spat to ward demons. That night, they camped beneath an ash tree. Rickon lay awake as sparks curled up into a star sky mottled by faint rifts, as though threads of cosmos had been tugged loose. When sleep claimed him, he dreamed of a wolf with burning wings leaping through a dragon's skull. He woke before dawn to silence so perfect it smothered breath. Beside the dying embers, Osha crouched rigid, one hand on her spear, eyes wide. Rickon followed her gaze and saw a boy of his own age standing at the forest edge, clothed in gray that shimmered like moonlit water. The boy's face mirrored Rickon's. Cheekbones, nose, curious squint. Yet sadness dulled the reflection. "Who are you?" Rickon asked, voice small in the vast hush. "I am what you left behind," the doppelganger replied. "Not a ghost. A possible." Osha rose, spear leveled. "Back to your dead mother, Shade," she snarled. The mirror boy ignored her. "The Night King pried me from the crack before it closed," he said to Rickon. "He gave me a shard of you. I can be you again if you yield." Rickon's heart pounded. "I chose the fire that warms. Warmth ends when wood is gone," the possible countered. "Ice endures." Osha flung her spear. The weapon passed through the phantom as through fog, clattering beyond. In that instant, Shaggy Dog charged, snapping jaws. The phantom dissolved to whirling snow before the wolf struck. Rickon sprang forward, hands out. "Stop! He's gone." Osha retrieved the spear, cursing. Shaggy Dog sulked back, hackles high. The silence lifted, wind returned with a low moan. Rickon swore he felt Bran's attention sweep over the campsite, a protective cloak settling. He hugged his knees. "I won't yield," he whispered into the wind. "I will be real." Bran's consciousness had indeed flown to his brother the moment the phantom stepped onto the ashlit clearing. He felt the Night King's icy grin like shards pressed along his spine. The old enemy had found a new tactic, weaponizing discarded possibilities, puppet through the crystal shard. Bran retreated to his body trembling, mind buzzing with dangerous awe. In the tower, he called a council of Winterfell's wisest. Maester Wolken, Lady Mormont still a cub but iron-willed. Ser Davos returned from White Harbor with news of southern fleets, and Lord Glover nursing wounds. They assembled before dawn, torches guttering. Bran relayed the encounter. "The Night King will send more," he finished. "Not whites, not walkers, echoes. They can't be slain by steel. They dissolve and return." Ser Davos scratched his beard. "How do we fight memory made flesh?" "With memory stronger," Bran replied. "We must anchor each soul here with vow and witness. Your people will need stories repeated by hearths, names carved anew. every oath sworn in real breath. Vulcan blinked. An oral lattice, he murmured. Language as barricade. Words are wind, Glover grunted. Words are roots when many mouths repeat them, Bran countered, eyes shining pale. The Night King bends possibility because fear frays memory. We will knot ours tighter. Lady Mormont slammed a small fist on the table. Then send every hall in the north a scald. We've no shortage of tongues. Davos nodded. I'll see to White Harbor scribes. Letters as well as song. Bran felt hope kindle, but he knew it was only one front. The south also shifted, where crowns might double if prophecy misread. So he reached out again to Sam, pushing urgent thought along the candle. Dragon Pit soon, warn all. If the second crown could be chosen, perhaps the Night King's shard lost potency. Across Blackwater Bay, King Tommen sat the Iron Throne, chubby hands gripping the swordwood arms. In shadows behind, his mother Cersei paced like a caged lioness. Since the High Sparrow's uprising ended in wildfire, her power had waxed unopposed. Yet rumor of dragons across the narrow sea shook even her poise. She snapped a raven scroll in two. They name her Queen Daenerys Stormborn, she sneered. A dragon queen for a dragon pit. They forget that pit is empty. Tommen swallowed. Mother, the small folk cheer her. They think dragons will bring wheat. Dragons bring fire. She whirled to Qyburn. Tell me the scorpions are ready. The gaunt maester bowed. Bolts tipped in cold iron, my queen. They will pierce any scale. Cersei nodded once, eyes calculating. Good. Summon the Tyrell fleet. They will shield our own. And fetch Grand Maester Barth's treatise on eclipses. She smirked at Tommen's puzzled look. If the gods plan a spectacle when the dragon arrives, we will script its ending. In the Red Keep's rookery, a dark-eyed raven preened under the watch of a novice handler. The bird's left eye glowed a muted green none noticed. It flew that dusk toward Old Town with a message. Eclipse set for Dragon Pit. Bran steered it. Sam's cog left Old Town Harbor 2 days later in a squall that snapped the topmast canvas but carried them east at miraculous speed. Heartsbane's black scabbard rattled under the benches each time the ship heaved. Gilly kept the babe swaddled, whispering rhymes from Mole's Town. Sam spent nights below with candle and copied parchment, tracing connections between eclipses in Valyrian legend and times dragons chose or were chosen by riders. He found repeated phrases. Two must burn that one may soar, and fire seeks the heart where light devours. No line explained the double crowns, yet each hinted sacrifice. At dawn on the fourth day, black sails cut the horizon. Euron Greyjoy's Iron Fleet, chasing rumors of Targaryen dragons. The cog's captain cursed. Sam rushed to deck, scanning waves that churned under swelling wind. The nearest longship bore a horned prow carved like a kraken devouring the sun. Sam's knees quivered. Eclipse again. The captain ordered oars doubled. The ironborn ship banked, adjusting course, intent on intercept. Sam gripped the railing. In the hold below, the glass candle, smuggled into a crate, flickered to life, shining through the seams. Sam heard Bran in his head. Choose what burns. He realized then the ship itself might burn to keep knowledge from Euron's brutal hands. He raced below, seized the candle. What do I burn? He begged the unseen green seer. A vision filled his mind. The Kraken ship engulfed by green fire, bodies leaping into black water. Another, his own cog blazing instead, parchment turned to ash. A third, no fire, but Euron taking the candle, using its whispers to woo shadows.
Sam reeled.
He dashed back on deck. Fire pots! Ready! He hollered, though throat dry. The captain blinked but obeyed, sloshing pitch into clay jugs. Euron's flagship closed, a monstrous form. Waves slapped hulls. Men hooted like seabirds drunk on blood. Sam hefted a fire pot, lit the fuse at a lantern, and hurled. The jug arced short, splashing hiss into the sea. Again, he croaked. A second sword, shattered on the Kraken prow. Pitch sprayed figurehead. Wind slapped sparks from lanterns along the enemy deck onto the tar. Flames skittered then roared, licking up the carved sun. Ironborn screamed. Sam dropped to knees. The Kraken ship veered starboard, oars thrashing water. Another pot thrown by a sailor smashed amidships, feeding the blaze. Soon sails flashed orange, mast cracking.
Figures dove.
The Lucky Raven, Sam's vessel, scraped by under a gusty miracle, sails straining but intact. Captain bellowed cheers. Sam felt no triumph, only the chill of paths replaced. He had chosen which fire burned. He prayed the deaths prevented greater horrors, though guilt weighed like wet iron. That night the glass candle slept. Far north, Mira Reed knelt beside the last green seer, hands splayed on the snow. The ancient man's eyes fluttered under lids like thin birch bark. "Your winged wolf has acted," he rasped. Flame upon wave, dark one snarls. Mira glanced at the runehorn child who slumbered nearby. Frost coated the horn's runes, yet a faint pulse thudded inside like a heartbeat. "What must I do?" she asked. "Guard the horn," the green seer said. "Its note will decide which wall stands." Mira traced the carvings. Direwolves, krakens, lions, dragons, all entwined. "A horn of worlds? Of endings," the old man corrected. "Blown once, walls shatter. Blown twice, they bind. Night King seeks the first blast. Bran the second." Mira's pulse quickened. "He knows where I am? Knows only that the horn lives. Keep it hidden until Bran says blow." Mira's gaze swept the grove. Faces in bark seemed to watch with mingled grief and expectation. She settled by the child, knife across lap, and waited through a night that stretched out like the silence before an avalanche. Back at Winterfell, Bran wrestled new calamities. Letters arrived from White Harbor. Ships seen on the horizon with hulls painted in Baratheon gold, yet sails stitched black. Davos wrote, "Sigils clash, colors lie. No captain knows his own flag." Bran read and understood. The verge spread across navies, identity bleeding like seawater through planks. Without swift weaving, war would erupt over simple misrecognition. So Bran summoned every raven of the rookery, perched them around the godswood, and poured steady memories into their heads. The scent of true stark pine, the sound of Winterfell's well-rope creaking, the taste of sisters' laughter. He sent them winging to every northern holdfast to roost above hearths, to watch children recite names of brothers and sisters, to imprint reality anew. When those ravens returned, their feathers would carry the scent of truth back to him. But ravens cannot reach the southern capital before twin crowns clashed. Bran left Rickon under Wolken's watch, entered the roots, and hurled his sight south like a spear. King's Landing boiling, streets clogged with refugees chanting dragon names, gold cloaks tense at every gate. Atop Aegon's high hill, the Red Keep bristled with scorpions aimed at the sky. Across the city, the ruined dragon pit thrummed with hammer blows as masons erected viewing scaffolds under Cersei's orders. She planned a spectacle. The captured Dornish prince paraded before Tommen pledging fealty, then perhaps a staged execution to demonstrate Lannister might. Yet Bran saw more. In one potential, Cersei raised Tommen high on a dais, placing a second crown upon his head while September bells tolled under a sky that darkened unnatural. In another, a silver-haired queen landed Drogon in the arena at that very moment, accepting homage as the sun died behind black wings. Eclipse indeed. Bran hovered between possibilities like a moat. If both crowns manifested, Tommen and Daenerys sharing the city even for a heartbeat, the Night King's shard could widen the fissure again. Bran needed to orchestrate separation. He soared into Maegor's tunnels under the keep, searching for Varys. The spider sat alone in candlelight, studying maps. He felt Bran's shadow pass, shivered. Bran whispered into a rat's ear and sent it scurrying onto the parchment. In the spilled wax, a message traced. Dragon arrives day of eclipse. Empty the pit or blood serves cold king. Varys blinked at the pattern, lips forming silent questions. Then he snapped orders to Whiskerot spies. Bran slipped outward to find Jaime Lannister, commanding Scorpion crews outside. Guilt and resolve warred in Jaime's face. He had convinced himself dragons could not be allowed, though part of him still felt the phantom heat of wildfire beneath King's Landing. Bran perched on the scorpion's arm and whispered through steel vibrations, "Aim high but fire low." The words throbbed into Jaime's pulse, cryptic but lodged. He flew to the harbor where Sam's cog docked at dusk. Sam disembarked panting, water left him weak. Bran nudged a gull to greet the scholar and guide him unseen through fish-stink streets toward the Red Keep side gate where Varys's whispermen waited. Causal lines tightened, weaving. Still the Night King felt the web tighten and responded. Beyond the wall, he plunged the crystal shard into the ribs of a slain giant, wreathed the corpse in icy runes, and sent it south across snow fields. The shard pulsed with fractured possibility. The giant carried within it a murdered Bran from a never-was, a prisoner of time. As the undead behemoth lumbered, the forest between worlds trembled. Ghosts of giants in fur and of giants in bone marched alongside, invisible yet palpable. Mira saw the horizon shimmer, fingertips on her dagger. The horn beat like a second heart. Bran felt the intrusion. He tried to divert the giant's course, but the shard's echo repelled him. A blade of pure contradiction. Only an equal anchor could bind it, Rickon's presence maybe, or Sam's knowledge, or the horn. But Rickon must remain south of the threat. Sam was half a continent below, and Mira could not blow the horn prematurely. Bran gambled, sending Summer's distant descendants, packs of iceborn wolves, against the Titan. They slowed it, gnawing rank flesh, yet onward it came. Dragonstone's tide pools steamed around Drogon's talons as Daenerys paced the beach. Tyrion and Missandei argued route charts nearby. A raven black as smoke landed on the Targaryen queen's arm, scroll tied with crude twine. She unrolled the strip. Dragon pit eclipse trap. Seek field of fire at dusk instead. Wolf inks this. Daenerys frowned. A Stark? She asked Tyrion. Odds are Varys. The spider loves cryptic wolves. Yet Tyrion's brows pinched, recognizing Bran's style spun through mystic rumor. Perhaps heed it. Cersei labors at theater. Better we play our own scene. Dany looked to Drogon, who watched with eyes like bubbling pitch. She stroked his neck. Very well. We shall meet her outside the walls, not within her chosen pit. A dragon chooses sky. Across the horizon, faint darkness crept, seed of eclipse. King's Landing awoke on that fateful morning to bells ringing both in joy and dread. Crowds surged toward the dragon pit, cheering banners of lion and stag, though rumor flew the dragon queen might arrive by noon. Varys's agents whisked Sam into tunnels under the city, parchment and candle in tow. Jaime rode the perimeter, ordering crews to lower bolts until final signal. Cersei donned a serpent-green gown that swallowed torchlight, placed a crown on Tommen's curls, and marched toward the arena. Bran's intellect flickered between vantage points, weaving illusions of presence where he could not physically be. He perched invisible above the pit grandstands at midday as the moon began to gnaw the sun. First a nibble, then a widening crescent. Spectators gasped. Priests intoned omens. Cersei smirked, certain the heavens chose her stage. Tommen stepped onto the platform, the lone crown gleaming. At that exact beat, distant cries swelled from the eastern gate. Daenerys riding Drogon above the rooftops, black wings eclipsing further. Above him Drogon roared, scorpions angled. Cersei pointed imperious for the bolt release. Bran shrieked through every raven in the city. A wall of black wings eclipsing the arena. The crowd scattered. Jaime's hands froze on the scorpion lever. Bran's earlier whisper thrummed. Aim high but fire low. Conflicted, Jaime yanked the lever sideways. The bolt shrieked past Drogon's claw to bury in an empty parapet, sparing the dragon.
Cer să-i spun, rage incandescent.
Fire again. A second crew obeyed. Bran dove into the coral mid-flight, tipping its nose. It grazed Drogon's flank but did not pierce. The dragon wheeled, baring teeth. Dany fought to steady him. Flames licked but she held. Across the pit Tommen wept, dazzled by darkness midday. At that breathless moment, Sam burst from a tunnel onto the arena floor, heart's bane raised, shouting, "Stop! The Night King hunts our division." His voice cracked but echoed. Nobody heard over roar. Yet Drogon's head swung toward Sam, nostrils flaring. Recognizing the Valyrian steel's song, the dragon's eyes reflected Sam's fear. Bran latched onto that glimmer, funneled his own presence through Drogon's gaze, lending the creature human focus. Drogon ceased flame, descended slowly until black claws touched rubble near Sam. The crowd shrieked anew. Sam held sword steady though arms shook. Daenerys slid down her mount's shoulder, landed before Sam, hair whipping in eclipse wind. "Who are you?" she demanded. "A steward of the watch," Sam gasped. "Sent by the wolf who walks time. 2 crowns cannot share the sky." Daenerys's jaw tightened. She stared at Tommen on his dais, tiny against Mother's towering rage. "You would have me yield?" "Not yield, choose. One flame must rise outside this pit." Sam pointed at mounting shadow creeping across Dany's boots. "Or winter winds." Above, the darkness reached totality. A corona blazed around the black disk, white-blue like ghost fire. People fell to knees. Cersei's command died in her throat. She sensed something older than her spite. Bran felt the shard rise, the Night King's giant cresting a ridge north of the wall, readying to plunge the dagger into permafrost. Final trigger to rupture the world's seam. Only the horn could answer. In the midnight, Grove Mira felt Bran's summons slam her chest. Blow twice. She snatched the runed horn, lifted to lips. The child stirred awake, eyes wide. Mira drew breath, icy needles pricking lungs, and blew. A note deeper than mountain roots sang through the forest. Snow exploded from branches. She blew again, sound layering atop itself until air itself shook. The horn cracked, runes flashing like embers in frost. The child cried out, but Mira did not stop until lungs burned. Across realms the sound reached. Ravens banked mid-flight, wolves howled one unified note. The Titan giant halted. The crystal shard in its chest vibrated, fissured, then shattered. The giant collapsed, ice dust erupting. Above Winterfell, sky rippled but held. In King's Landing, as totality peaked, a resonant bass throb moved in hearts. Daenerys felt Drogon answer with a roar of ancient recognition. Tommen clutched his chest, sobbing. 2 crowns seemed suddenly one burden too heavy. Daenerys stepped forward, raised her voice across the hush. "I will not take this child's city in fire today. My war is with winter." She turned to Drogon, vaulting to his back. "Fly!" Drogon leapt skyward, wings beating shadow away. The eclipse lightened already. Sliver of sun returned. Cersei screamed curses at the retreating silhouette, but crowds cheered, hearing mercy. The second crown faded, leaving only Tommen's trembling gold. Bran sighed through every tree in Westeros. The seam knit a little, the shard undone, though scars remained. He withdrew to his tower exhausted, but alive. Sam collapsed in the pit center, relieved but fearful of what price still due. Night fell gentle over Winterfell that evening. Bran convened nobody, spoke to no soul. He watched Rickon chase Shaggy Dog across snowy Bailey under singular moonlight, laughter ringing true. He sensed Mira trudging home with broken horn, last Greenseer's smile hinting success. He felt Jon's ship break through pack ice toward Hardhome, mission still dire but no longer mirrored by fatal copy. He tasted Sam's exhaustion seated in Varys' quarters, candle dimming for first time in days. The Night King's fury hissed beyond world's edge yet lacked the shard to burrow again. That piece of time lay cracked to dust on northern snow, soon buried. Bran let his roots loosen their grip on leg bones. He dreamed of spring for the first time since he remembered falling. Flowers in Winterfell courtyard, not red but blue, delicate as frost melting. In the dream, he smelt their perfume and it did not smell of blood. He woke before dawn to crisp hush, mind clear, heart strangely light. He pushed his chair to the window. The horizon glowed with thin gold. One sun, one sky. When he closed his eyes, he heard not clashing timelines but a single heartbeat. His own, and through him the North's. The world was far from safe, yet for this breath it was whole enough to keep breathing. And that, Bran thought, is all victory need be. A breath, another stitch. Tomorrow would tug. He would weave again. He watched sunrise paint the snows orange, and he whispered thanks to every name he could still recall in the singular. Then he began composing the next memory to send out on raven wings. For words were roots and winter was long, and stories are the strongest walls men ever build when stones find gaps.